5 animals that didn't just survive on this planet. They own entire continents for millions of years. People keep reporting them alive to this day, and science still has no clean explanation. Number 5, the dire wolf. The dire wolf wasn't just a bigger version of a regular wolf. It was a completely different beast. 150 pounds of pure muscle, with jaws so powerful they could crush bone like it was dry crackers. And it didn't hunt alone. Dire wolves hunted in massive packs, coordinated, relentless, and absolutely ruthless. Here's what makes them truly terrifying. At the Brea Tar Pits in Los Angeles, scientists have pulled out over 4,000 dire wolf skulls. 4,000 from one single location. That tells you everything. These animals were everywhere. They dominated North and South America for over 250,000 years. They owned the continent. Their prey? Horses, bison, giant ground sloths, even young mammoths. If it moved and it was big, dire wolves figured out how to bring it down. So what killed them? About 9,500 years ago, the Ice Age ended. Their large prey disappeared almost overnight. And unlike regular wolves, dire wolves were too specialized, too locked into hunting megafauna. They couldn't adapt fast enough, so they vanished. But here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. In 2019, a wildlife camera in Oregon captured a canine so massive that 3 biologists couldn't identify it. The case was quietly closed without explanation. In 1937, a Montana trapper killed one the size of a small horse, submitted the pelt to a university, and the records simply disappeared. Indigenous tribes across North America have described the same creature for centuries, bigger than any known wolf, hunting in silence, vanishing before anyone gets close. Science says dire wolves are gone, but the sightings, they never stopped. Number 4, Titanoboa. Titanoboa was the largest snake that has ever existed on this earth. 48 feet long, heavier than a car, so thick that a grown man couldn't wrap both arms around its body. It ruled the steaming swamps of ancient Colombia 60 million years ago, and was completely, utterly, terrifyingly dominant. This wasn't just a big snake that ate fish. Titanoboa hunted crocodiles. It would ambush them at the water's edge, wrap its body around them in a grip that generated over 400 pounds of pressure per square inch, and simply squeeze until every bone in their body collapsed simultaneously. Crocodiles, animals that have survived every mass extinction for 200 million years, were prey items for Titanoboa. Scientists say it went extinct when the planet cooled down. Case closed, except the Amazon is now hotter than it's been in recorded history. The deep jungle temperatures today match almost exactly the climate from when Titanoboa was alive. One researcher asked the question out loud: are we accidentally rebuilding the perfect environment for a mega snake to return? Tribes along the Rio Negro River have described Yakamama, mother of water, for generations. A snake so massive that when it moves through a river, it physically reshapes the banks. Explorers have found trees knocked completely flat in perfectly straight lines through flooded jungle. No storm, no landslide, just a corridor of pure destruction cutting straight through the forest. Over 90% of the Amazon remains unexplored. Its deepest river systems have never been mapped. If Titanoboa, or something descended from it, survived in those warm, dark waters, we would have absolutely no way of knowing. The jungle doesn't give up its secrets easily. Number 3, Helicoprion. In 1899, a scientist in Russia found a fossil that made absolutely no sense. It was a spiral of teeth, perfectly curved like a circular saw blade, with no jaw, no skull, no body attached. Just this terrifying wheel of razor-sharp teeth, coiled like a spring. For over 100 years, nobody could figure out what it was or where it came from. Meet Helicoprion, a shark-like predator that lived 290 million years ago and had the most bizarre, most horrifying weapon in the history of predatory evolution. Its lower jaw was essentially a rotating buzzsaw teeth. As old teeth wore down, new ones pushed forward from the back. A conveyor belt of death that never stopped, never dulled, never failed. It grew up to 25 feet long. It lived in the ancient oceans that covered what is now Idaho, Nevada, and Wyoming. And those teeth weren't just for show. Scientists now believe Helicoprion used that spiral jaw to slice through soft-bodied prey like ammonites with terrifying efficiency. Grab, spin, slice, swallow, over and over without pause. For millions of years it patrolled ancient seas completely unchallenged. Then the Permian extinction wiped it out along with nearly everything else. And in the deep ocean, which remains over 80% unexplored, there are shark species still being discovered that nobody knew existed. Could something distantly related to Helicoprion still be down there in the dark? The deep ocean has surprised us before. It will surprise us again. Number 2. Elasmotherium, the Siberian unicorn. You've heard of a unicorn. Every culture on Earth has a version of it. A massive, powerful, single-horned beast of almost mythological strength. And for a very long time, historians assumed it was pure fantasy. They were wrong. The Elasmotherium was real. A giant rhinoceros that stood 6 feet tall at the shoulder, stretched 15 feet from nose to tail, and weighed up to 4 tons. But what made it truly unlike anything alive today was its horn, a single massive horn growing from the center of its forehead, potentially reaching over 6 feet in length, longer than most humans are tall. This wasn't a gentle grazer. Elasmotherium was built like a tank and moved like 1-2. Those powerful legs, that massive lowered head, that horn pointed forward. Scientists believe it used that horn as a weapon in the most aggressive way possible, charging at full speed, driving that horn straight into anything that threatened it. It roamed the grasslands of Eurasia for millions of years, from Eastern Europe all the way across Siberia and into China. And here's a detail that genuinely shocks people. It survived until just 26,000 years ago. That means early modern humans didn't just hear stories about this creature. They lived alongside it. They saw it, they feared it, and they drew it on cave walls. That's where the unicorn myth came from. Not fantasy, not imagination. A living, breathing, 4-ton horned giant that our ancestors actually encountered. In 2016, scientists discovered a perfectly preserved Elasmotherium skull in Kazakhstan, far more recent than anyone expected. Some researchers now believe isolated populations may have survived even longer in remote Siberian regions. The area is vast, largely unexplored, and has already produced Ice Age animals preserved so perfectly in permafrost that their fur, skin, and even stomach contents are still intact. If any population held on longer than we think, the evidence could be frozen out there right now, waiting to be found. Number 1. Inostrancevia, a predator the size of a large lion, low to the ground, powerfully built, with a skull that was almost entirely jaw, and the teeth, 2 massive saber fangs, each one longer than your hand, curving down like biological hunting knives. But unlike Smilodon, Inostrancevia entire skull was engineered to maximize the force behind those fangs. It could open its jaw almost 90 degrees wide enough to drive those fangs deep into the neck of prey far larger than itself. It hunted Dicynodonts, massive, tusked herbivores the size of hippos. It tracked them, ambushed them, and killed them with a single precisely placed bite to the spine. The deep ocean is 80% unexplored. The Amazon is 95% unmapped. The Siberian wilderness is larger than the entire continental United States. And every single year, science discovers species it said couldn't exist. So, which one of these would you least want to encounter? Drop it in the comments right now. Hit that like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.